Something that Sarani said at the World Zionist Organization conference in Basel was this idea of turning startup nation into impact nation, Israel leveraging its small size to not just become another country with impact, but actually sort of a leader. But you're saying if Israel is 10 years behind, do you see it actually being able to sort of make that jump to actually becoming a leading force in the impact movement? So I want to talk a little bit about the knowledge of impact. You are obviously a financial professional, both looking at sort of the general public day to day. Something that sort of I've noticed is, simply setting up a pension fund myself, very, very small level of scale. And, looking after starting to work with Sarani, looking for, okay, do you guys have an ESG track? The kind of response that I got back personally was, why would you want that? Or what's ESG, or what's impact? A kind of skepticism combined with maybe like a lack of knowledge. So do you think that's something widespread? And in terms of the general public, do you see it changing?
I think the general public are not aware yet that their money, when they're not looking, is doing something, is impacting in its own way. So we are speaking about impact always, and we think of the being proactive. But what we are saying here is that even if you are not proactive, you are impacting. You are impacting in a negative way, but you are impacting. So I think that's our first stage, that to explain to people that when you're not involved and you're not choosing, you are choosing. Mm-hmm. So that's something that is starting for people to be aware of. And I think it's there is, for example, a Forum Kesef Naki, fossil fuel a movement that is trying to push push investments to take out fossil from their portfolio. But I think what we are trying to explain to them, that it's not there. It's not only there. That's a good way of explaining it, because it's binar, like it's oil, fossil fuel or not. Mm-hmm. But I think more and more people have to understand that those companies, you can invest in those companies that are doing good, that are have a diverse employment team, and they have more. They are looking at they are looking better and on the workers, and we can see that that's where we impact. So if we speak about the general public, I think we have a long way to explain to them. Mm-hmm. But once we'll manage to explain to them why they should care, I think they will start asking for it. Mm-hmm. And now let's go to the institutional investors. Mm-hmm. For many, many years, I'm in the field, and I knocked on the doors of so many of them. And I met them throughout those years. And they were reluctant to moving. And they're not bad people. They just, when they're so busy, that's the last thing they could do. Mm. That's the last thing that they will think of in volunteering. But then came the regulator almost a year and a half ago and said to them, people, it's not for you to decide. You need to start looking at those issues. And once the regulator said that, we see a very interesting move of most of the institutional investors, and they are starting to integrate. And Green Eye is now providing a database on 600 companies for a lot of for many of those institutional investors, and they're using it.
It's a database of Israeli companies. What's in your database?
It's an ESG database on the Israeli companies. Mm. And it's a database that didn't exist before, because if you look at the international indices, ESG indices and ESG databases, Israel didn't interest them. So most of the 600 weren't covered. The most that in one of the database, it was like 50 or 100. So they never really had something to look at those companies. So now they do have, and they're integrating. But
is it both public and private companies that you guys look at?
We look only on the public, mm-hmm. because that 600 are being traded in the Tel Aviv stock market. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting to see is that it's the evolution. Like, we're not asking, and I think people that are asking, it's not feasible. We're not asking them to move 180 degrees. We need them to move very responsibly, and move slowly in order to get there. Because we need to remember the institutional investors are managing a lot of money. And that's why I'm more interested of real changes on the way they work and starting to integrate it in their real day-to-day work than really big announcements that then they find out that it's more difficult to go and